It's really good to be here with all of you. Today we are embarking on the month of Tammuz. And during Tammuz, we begin our commemoration of the destruction of the two temples in Jerusalem, the first in 586 BCE and the second in 70 CE. Starting with the fast of Tammuz on the 17th day, we grieve 5 calamities that happened to our people. The 5 tragedies that occurred on the 17th of Tammuz are 1, the erection of the golden calf, 2, the breaking of the tablets containing the 10 commandments, 3, the discontinuation of the daily sacrificial offerings running up to the destruction of the first temple, 4, the breach of Jerusalem's walls resulting in the destruction of the first temple, and 5, the burning of a Torah scroll and the placing of an idol in the holy temple. This 17th day of Tammuz also marks the beginning of an annual 3-week period of mourning called the 3 weeks, which begins with a fast on the 17th day of Tammuz and ends with a fast on Tisha B'Av on the 9th of Av. This is a time of mourning where we grieve what has been and what we have lost, and it is a time where we reflect and lessen the extent of our rejoicing. For our family, this time of year is also one of mourning, reflection, and remembrance, as 2 years ago, around this time, we lost Ben's father, and a year ago, we lost his mother. His mother's stone setting will be in just a few months. And coincidentally, we also lost my father 15 years ago around these summer months, but closer to Elul. Both of my in-laws' deaths have encouraged me to reflect on how we know people when they are alive and how differently we know them in death. It is Ben's mother who I would like to talk about for a little while. I met her when I was 23 and had known her for 2/3 of my life when she died. Ben's mother, Evelyn, was an extremely generous woman. Evelyn was the kind of mother, grandmother, and mother-in-law who said, "I'm so glad you like it. What other colors do you want it in?" Or she might not even ask you, and the next day she would call and say, "I ordered it for you in 3 more colors." Or if something special happened or something upsetting happened, she'd always say, what can I buy you for a happiness present? Evelyn was also very physically affectionate, and my daughters will say that they always remember her taking pinches from their tushes. She enjoyed music and art, was an avid reader, and she and I often shared book recommendations. Evelyn was also quite critical and judgmental, prone to judging others by their clothing, hair, and other superficial indices. As Abby posted very affectionately on her Facebook page when she died, Evelyn was epically bitchy. And not only would she wholeheartedly agree and self-describe herself that way, but she would actually embrace it. And just to give you an example, when Ben and I were engaged, we went to St. Louis to visit them right before I started the interview process for my very first school psychologist job. Evelyn decided that I needed a blue suit for these interviews and took me to her favorite suit store. Upon entering the store, when the salesman asked, "How can I help you?" Evelyn retorted, "Well, just look at her," pointing her arm at me in my t-shirt and shorts. Needless to say, being patient and accepting of her as a daughter-in-law was not easy, and I was not always successful. And I was often unsuccessful, actually. There are so many stories I could tell you, but just to give you one other example, one evening Ben and I came home from a night out when they had been babysitting the girls here in Cleveland to find big garbage bags in Ava's room filled with any and all clothes in her closet that were from Target, which was most of them at the time. Because Target clothes aren't made well is what she told Ava and us. Don't even ask what then ensued with my then 9-year-old, who then wouldn't wear her clothes from Target. I think you get the picture. For the same reason, sometimes things were quite difficult for my daughters. Poor Ava, who wanted to be a dancer instead of a doctor or a lawyer, truly got the brunt of her judgment. She gifted them with her opinions on their clothes, their weight, their hair, and their dreams, just as she had gifted them with her happiness presents, her physical affection, and her abiding love. My daughter's Facebook posts when she died were very affectionate and full of loss. So I found myself asking each of them how they were feeling about Grandma's death, given the ambivalence they often felt and expressed when she was alive. Ava said, "I'm only trying to remember and concentrate on all of the good things about Grandma." Interestingly, Abby, who had always been the apple of her eye, not only because she was the firstborn grandchild, but because she lived out my grandmother's values by becoming a lawyer and marrying a Jewish professional, said, "I'm having trouble reconciling how generous and affectionate she was and how much she loved us with how critical and judgmental she was." It all got me thinking a lot about how when people die and we think about them after death or write eulogies about them, we focus on the positive. We do our utmost to remember the absolute best of people. What was truly special and unique about, we do the utmost to remember the absolute best in people, what was truly special and unique about them, what made us laugh, their generosity, bravery, resourcefulness, intelligence, and all the best of their characteristics that they have given to the world. And I've been thinking, what if we were able to do that? Just really zone in on and magnify and focus on each other's positives, all of us with each other, not just our families. What kind of world would this be? Let's face it, all of us have our annoying qualities and quirks, some more than others. At times, we feel ourselves triggered in some ways by these annoying qualities. But what would it be like if we could develop the ability to ignore those annoying qualities, or to at least minimize them, as we do when a person dies and when we eulogize them? What if we could really maximize that which is truly good in all of us? I know that this is not wholly realistic, but I think it's worth some reflection. Our book club this month has been reading Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. Some of you may also be familiar with his other well-known novel that was made into a movie called A Man Called Ove. I love this book, and the gist of the book for me is that we all have our backstories. As Frederick Bachman wrote, we had heard each other's stories, and that made it harder to dislike each other. Most of the time, unless we are especially close friends, is it not true that we have no idea of each other's backstories? And Evelyn, too, had her backstory. She grew up and was raised by a poor family in Texas and was the only Jewish child in her class. Her difficult experience as a child caused her, as an adult, to habitually ascribe value to relatively unimportant materialistic characteristics, sure that this was the way to help one succeed in one's world. This included the clothes and jewelry one wore, the social images one portrayed, the way one spent their leisure time, a symphony goer got lots of points, and the company one kept. Of course, her backstory contributed to the comment she made about me in the suit store and her cleaning out of Ava's Target clothes from her closet. I'm not saying her behavior was nice or right in either instance, but it certainly does explain and help us make sense of it. Our Shari Tick for Racial Equity book club also emphasizes consistently through our readings, podcasts, and our discussions how important it is to listen, learn, and know the stories of the other if we are ever hoping to form better relationships with them. Even though we are never supposed to use the word always, I would venture to opine that our backstories and our experiences almost always inform who we are, our perspectives, our behaviors, our fears and anxieties, and how we present ourselves to the rest of the world. Knowing the backstories of others helps make more sense of their annoying and quirky behaviors, and they become more tolerable to us. And knowing about the unique experience of others, especially those with very different experiences than our own, helps us to be better allies and advocates for them. When we remember people in death and present eulogies for them, we look at their lives as a big picture, as a whole, at their backstories, and they as people make more sense. We understand them better, and this makes it so much easier to see and focus on the very best that they've had to offer us. We downplay those characteristics we didn't like and accentuate those characteristics that were gifts to us. Tammuz is a month of mourning and grief that gives us the space to reflect on the backstories of our people, those we love, those of our friends and community, and our own backstories. How did we and others get to where we are today? What contributed to how we now fill these spaces? My own experiences of mourning and grief have given me the space to reflect on not only how we remember others in death, but on what do we focus our attention when they are alive? Would it be possible to search for and focus on the very best in each other, that divine spark in all of us? Does that become easier when we learn about each other's stories? Here is to remembering our own Jewish history and stories, listening and learning about the stories of each other, and using those to focus in on what makes each of us special and unique when we are alive, as we do when someone has died. Thank you for giving me this special opportunity.